Greenway, and this is my second novel, The Bird Skinner. The Bird Skinner was initially based on the figure and career of my grandfather, particularly how I remembered him when I was a college student. He was stuck in a wheelchair after a leg amputation, which, along with old age and drinking, had pretty much made it impossible for him to go back to his work. He had had a very fascinating career. He was an ornithologist who collected birds all over the world. He'd also served in the Pacific War, training pilots in how to survive if they got shot down, which was something he was excellently placed to do because he had collected birds in the jungle. So I guess I started with two main questions, and one was, why would it be that a man who'd led such a fascinating life would end up, at the end of his life, being so reclusive and so alone? The second question I had was what it might have been like for a man trained to hunt and collect birds to find himself then tracking men in war. I think I learned most about birds by visiting the Museum of Comparative Zoology and the American Museum of Natural History, where I found people who knew my grandfather and who were willing to really take me on and teach me the basics of ornithology. Not only about the birds, but all the personalities and the ornithologists who work there. They also took me behind the scenes and showed me drawers of skins and how birds were skinned and how they're cataloged and labeled. And then to learn about the war in the Pacific, I did go to the Solomon Islands. Our main battle in the Solomons was in Guadalcanal, where the Marines were sent to take a Japanese airfield. And that airfield is still the main airport of the capital, Honiara. And around the hills outside the airport, you can still see stakes with barbed wire stuck in the grass. And you can still lean down and pick up bullets, spent bullets from the ground. My Solomon Island character, who grows up after the war, my main Solomon Island character, Cadillac, she remembers swinging off rusty guns in the jungle and collecting canteens and other things she finds, and swimming out to the wrecks of Japanese ships and down to find sunken planes. It was easy to imagine when you got to the Solomons. You felt the war was still very alive in the landscape and in people's memories. I loved to write stories when I was a little girl. And I remember age about 10 probably, reading the book Harriet the Spy, in which a young girl keeps a diary and spies on her family and her friends. So I started to keep a spy book, as Harriet called it. And I think that's when I first got good practice observing things around me and exaggerating them, because I wanted my spy book to be as interesting as Harriet's. And so I would see something and then make it, exaggerate the situation and make it into a story. Well, I think authors often get asked what they write with, as if there's kind of some magic wand that the story comes flowing out of it. And I wish I had a magic wand. I was interested myself to read that John Steinbeck used to sharpen 50 pencils every night to be sharp and ready for writing the next day. But I'm not very methodical, and I'm not very disciplined, and I've had a lot of nice pens and I've misplaced most of them. So I like black ink some days, but some days I want blue ink, and I like legal pads. I don't really have too much of a method.